How you doing, Josh?
Doing well today. How are you?
Good. Staying
How much
warm.
snow did you guys get up north?
Did okay here. Yeah, 6, 7 inches, something like that. Not too bad.
We got better part of a foot down here in Parker. The boys were delayed in school yesterday and off today and possibly even off tomorrow with what's coming in tomorrow. So it's been
Well,
an
that's always
interesting week.
fun. Yeah. Hey, Jim. Good to
Hey
see you.
there. Likewise, likewise. Yeah, we got maybe sort of 8 or 10 here. What's key has been like melting on the roads and sidewalks, which seems to be happening to maintain the flow of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we always say we need the moisture. It's no joke. But I did have big plans this weekend that are not going to go forward. So
Oh, right.
gotten so
And
used to great weather.
everyone's trying to get their yards and leaves cleaned up, so this is they can kick back for a little bit.
That's right.
Because it
That's
won't
right.
really melt off here until what, middle of next week or something.
Yeah. It's going to keep coming, I think.
High school
Very
football
good.
playoffs start this weekend, so that's going to make for fun things.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that'll
Good
be
point.
fun.
Absolutely. Well, we're starting to get good crowd going. Yeah, please, if you got a minute, just drop your name and organization into the chat. That functions as our official attendance log. Let's wait one more minute. I'm looking for a couple other folks who I'm like sure. I want to make sure Bonnie's here. All right. Well, we're 3 minutes in. Let's go ahead and get started. Kate, if you can keep an eye out for Bonnie, let me know when she arrives.
Will do.
Thanks. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's been 3 months, if you can believe it, since we were all together. We had a nice meeting in Fort Collins, which worked out really well. And I'm still thinking that we might try to do our May meeting back there again. So this tough for travel as if you're looking out your window this time of year. And our February meeting will probably be the same, but maybe by May everyone can move around and get together. I'd like to see that maybe be our largest meeting ever. So make sure you plan ahead. I will talk through a couple of things before we get into some of the details here. But overall, our agenda is as such. I want to touch on our guiding principles, think about our end state just for a couple minutes again, as we always do. We've got some new folks here, including Joel Moffett, who's coming on. So we'll do a quick introduction there. I have a call to action for you all around crop stakeholders. We've been thinking about, we're really underrepresented, I think, in the crop space, and in terms of making sure we have good industry and producer representation here. And so we've got a proposal in terms of some names that might work. I'll share that with you all, and then maybe we can get your feedback and some new or maybe better names. People would be really interested in participating, have a passion for the topic, and so on. I'll make a proposal to continue these quarterly meetings on the first Thursdays as we have done in the last 2 years, and see if we can just extend that calendar through next year. And then Josh will provide a quick update on, well, maybe quick of an update, and then there's plenty of room for Q&A here around the actual milestone report and the update. So I want to make sure we really focus on, everyone's clear on what's happening and how are we going to move forward. There has been, we wrapped up our public comments at this point, which were extended. So we'll get into that. Dr. Alverman, I see you're here. We'll ask for you to do a quick update. It may go at 11:40 or maybe a little earlier. I know you have to leave by noon our time, so we'll make sure that you get a chance to share what you know. And Dr. Schumacher, I've seen on the line. Are you here? Not yet. Not yet. Okay. Well, I know he'll be here. He says he'll be here. So, and then we'll dive in to an update on our BMP inventory. We talked about some of the status there in the literature review, and Bonnie, I'm hoping, will be on and provide that update. Depending on the dialogue there as we move back and forth, we may be able to wrap up a little bit early today, but we'll be flexible. So anything else that anyone has kind of a walk-on agenda item before we dig in? Okay, let's get started. First up, we always review our guiding principles. I'll just give you a minute here. This is continues to be the overriding purpose for our group and why we are here. Worthwhile to just continue to review this in terms of what is written, what has been shared. And I'll give you 1 minute. That 50% reduction goal still out there. Worth reviewing each of these 4 tenets that we have. Continue our collaboration, work on those BMPs, and promote the implementation of those over time, including any barriers or alternatives, including the early warning system, and assess and narrow our gaps on the sources, particularly in the project area. Okay, so now we're all up on that. A couple of thoughts here. Just always wanting to remind ourselves, this subcommittee, while there's enormous objectives and a scope, that is statewide and within the local area, focus area, we have to think about, what are the areas where we're clear, where we're making progress? How will we know when we've succeeded? And are there any milestones to gauge our progress and our completion? And I'll just open that up if any of you thought, well, thanks, Kate. Welcome, Bonnie. Any thoughts on, as we think about our progress, how to measure our progress, in particular over the coming years, as we start to refocus on after this milestone report, and thinking about what would be a way we would know that we have succeeded and are thinking about a potential completion of all of our work, however many years in the future that might be. Jim.
I mean, just some general thoughts here. I think of the kind of the end state. It's the concept of optimization of the BMPs for ag producers, and and the maintenance needed maybe for that to persist or endure. I'm not thinking of the right word, but it's the optimization, I think, is in the guiding principles. We also have conversation to have with agriculture in the master plan review. And the agencies have started to kind of sketch out those categories I might cover quickly in our section. But I think that will also inform the road ahead in our collaboration.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Jim's points or others?
I would agree. I think that the MOU's agency's review of the greater plan and what comes out of that will help guide some of this discussion about what does success look like? How do we know when we've gotten to the end? And until we get through that process, it may be a little premature to say now what success looks like, what our guiding, our measurements are.
Yeah, that's fair. I would understand that and make sure we think about this as broadly as we can, even over the long horizon. Josh.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. And I guess building on the last two comments, I think a measure of success in the near term is engagement and participation as we look to, re-engage with some of the crop stakeholders, as well as look at this, plan review that we're going to be undertaking. I think this is a critical time for engagement, and, kind of tracking that engagement might be really important over this next year or so.
Yeah, great points.
I guess I would ask both Jim and Josh if you kind of have any examples of that. Like, Jim, I know you've always asked us what optimization looks like, but when you think of optimization, I guess I'm just curious, like, what that means to you, and then Josh, what participation means to you, just to give me a better idea of where you guys are at and what you're looking for.
Jim, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
I guess for me, engagement, starts with these quarterly meetings. I think most of you are aware, we formerly had a combined contract with our Department of Ag and CDPHE to help pay for the facilitation of these meetings, and CDPHE has taken on that contract in its entirety for this current fiscal year. We are planning to, put that into our budget for the next fiscal year as we start preparing those early in 2025. And so I think the first starting point for engagement here is participation in these quarterly meetings. And as we think about, kind of plan review, I think there's going to be some subtopics that come out of that. And there will be smaller meetings that either are organized by CDPHE or maybe the Park Service or even by Brian and his team. So I think, starting with these meetings and continuing to be engaged and having the dialogue in these meetings. And then, I'm hoping for a commitment to participate in subtopics as those are developed during the plan review is kind of what I'm envisioning for engagement.
Josh,
I just sharing my thoughts quickly. Your question is about, like, well, what do we think of optimization means? And this is something that we as a group, and we've struggled a bit to define, but the concept is the broad adoption, or the adoption to the degree possible of recommended ammonia BMPs by ag producers, and realizing that there's all different types out there. It's never going to be 100%. So I would, lean on the process and conversations with you to help define that, which we have not yet. Since we're talking about, we're talking about the plan review thing here, and I was going to save this a little later. This, like, the categories for and these are just concepts right now, but just as a teaser for future conversations, where we'll be looking at, like, climate change implications for this project, emission inventories, the top down versus bottom up ways to improve that, NOx regulation, on deposition, NOx regulation implications of deposition, and similarly ammonia, voluntary BMPs implications for deposition. And there's a lot of sub bullets and categories and conversations there. Of course, the metrics for this project are up for discussion. The glide path goals, measures, including like normalization of the data to reduce the to better understand, industry contributions to this project, and try to normalize or remove the the uncontrolled factors, the meteorology and so forth, trying to nudge that forward. We've also been well, I know, Bonnie, you're aware, Jill Barron's working on a paper that's going to dive into things that we normally don't think about, some sort of market drivers and so forth. So, we'll be paying attention to that as well. So that's a brief take on both what we think about optimization, what we I think there's a group agreement that we want to try to achieve that and better define that, but also things to inform a conversation in the future.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Really good points. Keep in mind.
Brian,
Yeah.
one question for something that Josh said. Josh, you mentioned CDPHE is taking over the funding of this quarterly meeting process or the facilitation. I assume over this year and your plans to budget for next year that Brian's company will continue to be serving as facilitators. And do you see them as having a role in facilitating any of these sub committees, or is that something that we will facilitate ourselves and then just report back to the larger group?
So the answer to your first question is yes. For this current fiscal year, we have issued that contract to Brian's group, and so that contract extends through the end of June. Our intention is to budget the money and review with Brian for next year, or even potentially explore a multi-year contract. Depending on how we decide on that. We have certain, fiscal responsibilities to go out for contract or go out for bid on certain sizes of contracts. And so I think we are contemplating, the need potentially for a multi-year contract instead of a year-to-year contract. And, we, along with CDA, have been, extremely impressed with Brian and his group in facilitating these meetings. We think this has added a tremendous amount of benefit to the overall conversation. And so our intention is to continue that process as we go forward. If we were to want to use Brian's team for additional, subcategory meetings, things like that, we may have to look at a contract amendment, because that's not currently in the scope, and would potentially have to look at some additional dollars for that. But I think if that's something that is of value to this group, it is something we are willing to explore.
Okay, thank you. No, I wasn't, I guess, suggesting for the sub breakout groups or whatever, just asking what y'all's discussions have been and intentions. Thank you for the clarification.
And I think, in the first part of this next year, we'll start to put some clarity and maybe some timing around different subgroup topics. And so, potentially that is something to add to the scope for, kind of that new contract that would start July 1st, if that's something that we feel like is needed. So I think there's time to discuss and make some decisions on that, and then kind of tailor the scope as we go forward.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, great, great discussion. We do have room, just to clarify, we do have room for one set of sub discussions in the current contract where we thought that would be some of the BMPs. So if we wanted to reconfigure that or reallocate some of that time, we do have a little flexibility in the near term. Just wanted to add that, since we did not do a quarterly breakout of the BMP this quarter. We've got some extra budget there. Okay. any other thoughts here on the overall question? I think that's really nice. We dug into that deeper than we have recently. Thanks, everyone. All right. Michael, you there? You want to introduce Joel? You're on mute if you're there, Michael. Am I going once? Twice? Okay. I see you're here. Maybe we can come back to you. Might be having trouble with your microphone. Okay. Let's get into the crop stakeholders. So we had an interesting conversation recently, just as a small breakout group, and we were thinking, and I think, Nick, I saw you here, so this is particularly relevant to you, but I'm just going to switch over to another view here. Is everybody looking at my spreadsheet? Great. So we've been thinking about, what role have we really seen, both sort of over time, maybe over 10 years or something like that? What has been the arc of participation from our crop stakeholders? And it seems like we've been missing some people, or so a few people have dropped off, and there's potentially areas and industries and crops that haven't been involved at all, that probably should be, or at least should be aware of where we are, and could potentially be added to our distribution list and to this invitation for the upcoming quarterly meetings. So I just wanted to share what we've come up with so far in terms of a structure here. Nick, you'll see you made the top and you're in green. Well done. So we appreciate you being here. But there are a number of others, and you can see here we start to work down, Western Sugar, the Farm Bureau, Farm Union, fruit and vegetable growers and associations. And in some cases, we have some emails from the past. In other cases, we're blank, right? We don't have anyone from the Greenhouse and Nursery Association, for example. And there's some other areas that we may want to pursue in terms of, related or ancillary groups that we have here. So I just focus on this crop section here, 1 to 13 or so. Are there, is anybody aware of any of these folks that maybe we should put a little extra effort in, or could maybe make a personal appeal to join our cause here? Any names, potentially that we should add? I'll just pause here for a minute. Let's just focus on this group for a minute, and then we can look into some of the other sections. How does this look as a representative body and other organizations or individuals that we should invite?
Well, I think that all those people used to be on this committee. So what happened?
Yeah, that's the question. That's right.
I know that I was participating in this when I was at Farm Bureau, and so I don't know if Ashley would be the right person or if it would be Tim, but I think just put that in front of Taylor, and she can figure out who the right person would be. But adding a lot of these back in, I can tell you, Glenda is the person who's in charge of the Greenhouse and Nursery Association. I can ping her on that, or I can get you her contact information. But I think adding Rebecca Larson would be a fantastic add. She understands these types of things very well. Brad Urker with wheat, he'd be another good one. I don't know how much they contribute to this, since they're mostly dry land, but there's also that. And I'll keep some thoughts open as well, but I think those would probably be the biggest ones, as along with Farmers Union, to try and get re-engaged.
Thanks, Nick.
Marilyn Bay Drake. Yeah, that would be the other thought I would have, Nick.
And is Adrian Card still with Colorado Fruit and Vegetable Growers, or is he with Extension, or both? I just don't know.
I thought he was with Extension. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. I thought he was with Extension now.
So this email is no longer valid?
So Adrian is no longer at the county level, he's at the state level with Extension. But Marilyn Bay would be the one for fruit and vegetables.
Okay, so confirmed on this. Thanks. I'm getting a couple, oh, Glenda Mostek. Here we go. Thank you. Wonderad. Any other names coming to mind here? Jim?
I've got a non-crop question if you wanted to complete this before
Sure.
I ask. Okay.
Let me just say, okay, so we've got call outs for Rebecca, Ashley, Marilyn, Brad, and now Glinda as potentially still in the right place and having some history with us.
Yeah.
Josh, if you and some others are comfortable, we can make a specific plea to those folks. And if anybody here, we've shared the link to the document. So maybe I'll just in live, I didn't plan on doing this, but now that we've done that, let's just say, outreach, something like that. And if anybody here has a contact with any of these folks, feel free to put your name, over here. If that's something that you would like to do. If we don't get any names for these folks directly to make that personal appeal to join us, then Josh and I will maybe divvy up the list or something. But we want to make sure that folks understand the why we're expanding this point now and make this a long-term relationship. So any appeals we can make would be helpful. Julie.
Nick, is this something that we could add to Ag Council's agenda when we have our meeting in December? Just to see if somebody else wants.
We could. I think honestly doing some personal reach outs here would be beneficial because then we could actually, have a discussion with those people on why they need to be engaged in this or re-engage in this. And this is a much smaller subset of well, I guess if you go down to the livestock, but the livestock side has been much more engaged than the crop side. One thing I would ask though is you have Rocky Mountain Agribusiness Association. Would they fit under crops, or would that just be kind of like an other or like an ancillary type of organization? Since they're more agribusiness, they're the ones who provide the fertilizers, pesticides, all that stuff that our crop producers use, rather than actually representing the crop farmers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Nick.
Brian, I was gonna suggest item 19, Colorado State University. Maybe Eric Wardle.
Yes.
WARDL. I think that would be a good person to attend. LE Wardle. Ward LE.
Got it.
Yep.
And the first name is what?
Eric with K.
AK.
ER
with a K.
Eric with a K.
There it is. Eric.
Yeah.
And
there is an I between R and K.
Oh, Eric. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just getting a little fuzzy on the audio. Okay,
I
Eric
think it
Wardle.
would be
Thank you.
You got.
And in addition to that, would Megan Shapansky, she does research on fertilizers and nutrients, right?
Yeah.
She might be another good one to add into this. And I do not know how to spell her name off the top of my head. I will get that to you.
I'm pretty good at butchering names, so.
Oh, that's way off.
Okay.
And
Thank
so
you.
would those both be crop specific folks at CSU?
Yeah.
Eric does the water quality side of
right.
things.
Okay.
And then Megan Shapansky is a researcher that we've done work with, and she's been doing stuff in nutrients for us.
Okay, so probably, yeah, broad spectrum there.
And maybe Cherie as well, because he does some nutrient stuff. I'll get you some names.
Yeah, feel free to email me any details. We're going to make a push here over the next month, see if we can get them involved for the February meeting. So yeah, as soon as you can, and we'll continue to follow up on this. It just feels like a gap that needed closing. So thanks for the help, everyone. Any last thoughts here on the names? Oh, thank you. Brent came up with a real spelling.
Yeah, thank you, Brent.
You betcha. I've worked with Megan a lot. She's a rock star.
Oh, there we go. Love that. Okay.
Maybe even if we want to include ARS, the USDA, Grace Miner might be a good one. She's done some stuff on nutrients for us.
Grace Minor, M-I-N-O-R.
M-I-N-E-R. Sorry, I was on mute.
Yep. Got it. Okay. This is wonderful. Thanks everyone for jumping right in. Oh, Brent shared a picture of Megan. Thanks. Okay, so you have this link. We'll distribute the link in the notes and I'll put a call to action in there. Let's give ourselves a week or so, probably, just to think of anybody else. And then we'll put a full court press on the folks in red, at least. We'll work on the other group as well. We'll let them know. But if you have personal relationships or contacts with Rebecca, Ashley, Marilyn, Brad, anyone in red here that we've highlighted today, feel free to click into the document link and add yourself as a potential outreach contact. And if no one signs up, we'll cover it ourselves. So thanks everyone. I'm going to move back to our main agenda. Josh, we're a little late, but there you are. So
Yeah.
Brian, I got a
Gotcha.
quick question on the previous
go ahead, Jim.
topic here. So poultry came up in the past, and to be honest, I forget where we landed on that. And but Bonnie has in hand this analysis of like potential contributors from that analyzes a number of factors, including proximity and such. And within the top 15 potential contributors to the deposition of the park are 3 large poultry producers and like 1 sheep one. And would those also be appropriate either through representatives or individual reps from those producers to be a part of this group?
So that would be Bill Skebby. He's the one who's taken on the Colorado eggs. I don't think we have a broiler population here. It's all eggs. But he would be the one who's Skebby is SCEBBI, I believe.
like that.
Boy.
Oh, B for boy. Sorry. Got it.
Thanks for having them on the list.
And we could maybe make a contact with Bonnie with Colorado Wool Growers and see if they're interested. You remember what Bonnie's last name is, Nick? I can't think of it.
Bonnie Lawson, is it?
I'm having a blank.
Bonnie Brown.
That was sheep.
Yeah, it's Colorado Wool Growers.
Got it. Thank you, everyone. We're really working this. Okay, so we'll stick with the egg line, right? We said. Any other names? This is great. Okay. Well done. All right, Josh, you're up.
Thanks, Brian. thanks for the opportunity to just speak a little bit to kind of where we are in the process with the finalization of the report. I'm just going to go through fairly quickly a little bit of an overview of the public comment period, some themes of some of the information that we received during the public comments, and then a little bit about kind of next steps. Encourage Jim or Rebecca or Matt or any of the other staff from the MOU agencies to chime in here as well as they see appropriate. So we had the original public comment period open for 45 days when we put that out for public comment. We did receive a request from National Parks Conservation Association to extend that by an additional 60 days. Staff from the MOU agencies got together when we received that request. We felt like 30 days was a more appropriate extension, and we agreed as a staff to take that forward to our respective agency leadership, and ultimately approved a 30-day extension, really with the goal of having the final report out by the end of the year. And if we would have extended public comments out until the end of November, it was looking very unlikely that we would get everything completed and published by the end of the year, with holidays and rulemaking schedules and everything else that was going on in the respective agencies. So that's a little bit of the background on why we offered the additional 30-day extension. During the public comment period, we received 6 public comments. 3 of them came in as what we would term group comments. Colorado Livestock Association, Weld County, National Parks Conservation Association submitted joint comments to us. And then we got 3 individual type comments, either from an individual person or an individual company. Those came in from Dr. Jana Milford, a Mr. Ovali, and then Caleb Livestock. So we are in the process of kind of consolidating and compiling all those comments together, and then the MOU agency staff will start working through them. Just kind of to speak a little bit about kind of some of the broad themes. I'm not going to address individual comments today, but really talk a little bit more about broad themes that we heard. And I broke these down into really kind of 3 categories. The first category is data-related comments. We received a number of comments about how we discussed the NEI methodology changes and how that was characterized in the report. We received some comments about the inventory, NEI data versus direct, directly quantified data. And we received a number of comments about other ammonia sources, on-road engines, non-road engines, other stationary sources. And so, there was a number of questions or comments that we received about either what data we used or how we discussed that data in the report. The next category of questions it really surrounded analysis. There were some questions about the defensibility and the transparency of the methods, availability of the underlying data that was used for them. There were specific questions about transport of emissions and how that impacted the park, as well as conversation and discussion about spikes that are seen in the data. And so, there's like I said, there's a bucket of comments that surrounded the analysis. And I'll kind of speak a little bit more in a minute or two about maybe some ideas that we have about, some of these topics as well. I just want to kind of cover what we were receiving. And then the third, what I'll call major bucket of themes was, potential actions. There were some comments about additional requirements, whether that be inventory and reporting or, some type of a federal level or state level requirement for ammonia emissions. There was a comment about the contingency plan and a need to develop a new and more robust contingency plan. As you all know, as part of the signing of the reauthorized MOU, the agencies decided to remove the contingency plan process in this latest authorization. There were some comments about the need for additional ambient monitoring and additional locations for ambient monitoring sources. And then there were some comments about really taking additional action to quantify the impact of the BMPs. A lot of those are qualitative type approaches. And there was a discussion or comment about, you know, is there an opportunity to quantify some of that more? And so those were kind of what I'll call high level themes that we were seeing throughout the comments. And I want to transition now a little bit to kind of next steps. And so, you know, as you all know, we've reauthorized the MOU for the next 5-year period. As part of that reauthorization, we removed the contingency plan, but we are committing to a more holistic project review. And I think one of the big takeaways for me in reviewing the comments is that, you know, a number of these comments really probably are best addressed as part of that review process. If there is a discussion about whether or not the NEI is the appropriate inventory, or there's a better way to develop a more holistic ammonia inventory than the NEI, that seems like a prime conversation for project review. If there is a discussion about the ambient monitoring data that is available and how it is used, you know, that seems to be part of the discussion as a forward-looking concept, as opposed to trying to reanalyze, is probably the right word, historical data that's already been collected and reported in these, you know, prior milestone reports. And so, you know, I think one of the things that I am personally thinking about and have discussed a little bit with the other MOU agencies is some of these response to comments may involve an idea of including that in the forward-looking plan for the project. And, you know, so as a group, we're going to go through and review the comments, discuss if there are any changes that are needed to the report in response to the comments. We've previously published a response to comment and errata documents in our prior reports, and I think we are thinking that we'll use a similar approach to this report. And as I mentioned kind of at the onset, you know, we're targeting year end for final report publication so that we can start 2025 fresh and really focus on the project review that we've committed to and really make that our priority starting out the next calendar year. And so I will pause there, see if Jim, Rebecca, Matt, or anybody else from the MOU agencies has anything else that they would like to add before we open it up to any other questions or a broader discussion.
Sure thing. Just adding a couple items. So I guess first of all, thank you for those agricultural entities, CLA, and others that spent the time reading and commenting on the report. I also want to take a step back and thank Bonnie for her, you know, efforts in co-presenting the milestone report to the commission. That was quite helpful and I think critical for us to do in the future, for, you know, essentially agriculture to represent agriculture is very appropriate. In fact, one of our action items is to make sure that happens in the future. So that was important for us to maintain. I think I think I'll stop there and see if there are other agency folks on the line that have other complementary points. Maybe not. Have I? I'm just making sure that I'm still connected to the call here because I saw
there.
folks.
It's got crickets. That's all.
In the awkward silence. Maybe Brian, if there's, you know, questions, comments, suggestions from agriculture.
Yeah, well,
we
I
could
would
open
say,
this up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, I really appreciate the invite to be there at the AQCC. I think it was incredibly important, and I'm glad we were there and that you guys brought us to the table. So I think it was a huge opportunity for us, and I'm glad we got it. I guess the only thing I would say, or I wanted to maybe mention, is it's not specifically called out in the Ag Subcommittee section, but quantification is one of the things we're kind of generally working towards with our BMP inventory. So I don't know if you want to directly respond by saying, you know, it's like, I don't know what major promises we can make, but we are working towards quantification of these different BMPs. So, you know, that is an ongoing process. I would say that that's another one of those things that belongs in the future plans, and it is something we're working on. And maybe it's something that needs to be highlighted a little more in the Ag Subcommittee section or something like that. But that is one of the end goals, is to try to put some numbers to the BMPs in a scientifically sound way. So.
Right, and forgive me, are you talking about their efficacy or the adoption rates? Maybe both.
Both, I would say
Okay.
both. Yeah. So, and we've got at least one iteration of the survey that shows implementation in Weldon, Morgan County, and then it's kind of taking that with our lit review and the inventory database to see what kind of reduction we'd be comfortable quantifying. But yes, both. And I guess the BMP work group is working more on quantification from the literature side, and it's maybe more the broad Ag Subcommittee, or like CLA has been typically the one to do the surveys in the past. So, you know, but yes, I think this group in general is working towards quantifying both of those things.
Yeah,
And it sounds great. It's also going to be, you know, stepwise how we're going to both achieve and understand what optimization ultimately means.
Yeah, Bonnie, and I appreciate the work that you all are doing, and I know it's ongoing. And I think this kind of dovetails into kind of the broader conversation about inventory and the questions we have over NEI data, both in agriculture and potentially transportation as well. And, you know, are there ways that we can, you know, qualitatively and ideally quantitatively improve the inventories as we move forward?
I want to pause us just for a moment. We have some time restrictions on a couple of our speakers today. Dr. Alverman needs to leave by noon, and Dr. Schumacher has to get out by about 12:10. So maybe we could proceed with their slots and then come back to this at a more extensive, in-depth. Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate everyone's flexibility on this. We just went a little long in our opening segment. So, Dr. Alverman, if you're ready, we can have you give us at least a brief update. I appreciate you jumping back into the mix. I know you had a previous commitment, and we're your plan B, so we love that.
Well, it's not letting me share just yet. I would like to put up a couple of things, and then I'll get out of your way.
You betcha. You should be free to go now.
All righty. Okay, so this is where we started many months ago. Make sure that I'm seeing the same thing. In our what we call our in vitro. These are small chambers, meter by meter. We've created a synthetic feedlot service, but with real stuff, real feedlot manure and so forth. And what we did to produce a graph like this is to, at day 2, apply synthetic urine in a spot within that square meter, and then either sprinkle water over the top of it or not, and see what the change in fluxes would be as a result of the sprinkler. And this is where we start. The comparison of note here is the synthetic urine. The flux from synthetic urine is in yellow. The flux from synthetic urine plus the sprinkler is the darker green. You can ignore the other one safely. The bottom line here is that although it looks dramatic if you look at a baseline of 125, it's still that 125 that comes in across the bottom at day 2 we're not dipping into that at all. We're reducing this cumulative flux over a 4-day period by about 16%. So it's modest, and that's under highly controlled conditions. A couple of things I want to show. You have to cross your eyes a little bit to see this. The salient comparison is between red and green. the vertical axis is the amount of effectiveness. That is how much flux was mitigated. And in Texas, the sprinkler mitigated up to the red. And then using manure from Colorado and water from Colorado, the peak effectiveness was considerably less. What that points to is just that this is a site-specific, manure-specific, water-specific thing that we're evaluating. And so we have to be aware of the variability associated with that, and we have to be prepared to adjust what we find in Texas to what we would expect to find in Colorado. So let me move to a couple of other things. What happens over a longer period of time with just one application of water? You end up, look hard at the dark green. We are able to mitigate some compared to the yellow, but there's another flush of ammonia flux in the second week, which we anticipate as a result of having hydrated the manure, reactivated microbes, brought more ammonium into solution, and driving a second peak of ammonia emissions. It matters whether the manure starts dry, moderately moist, or wet. The highest effectiveness early is with this manure moisture content of about 20%. Very dry manure starts with low fluxes, but the effectiveness is low percentage-wise, and then at a higher moisture content, 35%. Intermediate fluxes, but low effectiveness. And there are good reasons for that, and we will be publishing those shortly. Repeated applications of sprinkler water over the top of these synthetic manure, synthetic urine spots every 2 days, about a 12% reduction in cumulative flux after 2 weeks. So yes, it continues to work. The cumulative reduction here is 12%. You saw earlier it was 16% for the first wave. And so you can see that the effectiveness plays out. And now, we've just got to be able to quantify that. We've done some work with dissolving alum into solution. And as we expected, alum dissolved into the water that we use in the sprinkler can have a tremendous effect. But of course, the more you use, the better it becomes. But the more you use, we're in a law of diminishing returns situation there. So this is the way it seems to work. You apply water. You have a synthetic urine application, you apply water over the top, it reduces the flux for a while, and then it increases the flux later. And if you take that same model and superimpose a whole bunch of them, animal by animal, all over a big, wide surface, and keep repeating it over time, you're going to get a lower overall flux reduction than the 16% we showed earlier in that first experiment. So the net effectiveness is going to be somewhere south of 16% potential reduction in flux. Whether we apply it once and let it go or keep applying it, it's going to be well less than 16%. So conclusions, and I'll get out of your way. Sprinkling of pen service does appear to reduce cumulative flux up to 20% or so. The nitrogen content of both the water and the manure would be important. We still got to tease out which is which. Applying water reactivates biologically mediated transformation, chemical transformation in the manure to produce more ammonia in the out days. Repeated applications of water at 2-day intervals enhance the effectiveness. They continue to be effective, but the cumulative flux reduction is, again, south of 16% probably. And then the last thing is, can we replicate our findings outside the laboratory? And I'm pleased to note this is not one of the places we worked, but we worked at 2 different locations in Colorado, and we pulled out of there just a couple of weeks ago, and data analysis is ongoing. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, so Dr. Overman, you talk about a 16% reduction immediately. Over the long term, it's less. But would it be fair if we were looking at this as a BMP to employ during an early warning system, is 16% a good number to use? Because we're looking at that time right after application for,
Right.
a 4-day window is most of our warnings. So for the 4 days
We are
following application, what would you say the numbers are
Yeah,
saying?
that's a great point. And in fact, that was the question I posed to my PhD student for his preliminary exam a couple of about a week and a half ago. He has sent me his response. It is that is something we need to discuss before we come out and answer your question forthrightly. But Justin, I can tell you this: I intend to answer that question forthrightly. That is the question. And we just have to take what we've done and interpret it faithfully. And I want to make sure that before I stick my neck out too terribly far, I'm fairly confident in that we've discussed it in all of its different permutations and from all different angles.
No, that sounds good. One other question or thought to consider, I guess, if you were looking at the difference between dry, moist, and moderately moist manures, is there ever a time that this could end up being a BMP when you're dry, but if you're wet, the fact that you're not sprinkling because you're wet is also either beneficial or negative? Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Yes, it absolutely does. And any recommendation on this would have to accommodate all of those considerations. It makes a difference whether the temperature is high or low or in the middle. And what constitutes the middle for this particular scenario, we haven't yet teased out. But I think it would be irresponsible to pose this as a mitigation method without having thought through all of the different circumstances within which people would be asking the question, should I do it today or not? I need to be able to help us answer that question irrespective, well, no, including to the greatest extent possible all of the permutations of the conditions that actual livestock producers will see in real life.
Thank you.
That's
I appreciate that. And I think that sums up the complexity of dealing with a biological system and just about all of these BMPs is what may be a good thing today may not be a good thing tomorrow. And then how that's really where we're struggling with is even once we come up with a number, how do we quantify these things, to Jim's point, and make sure we're counting them as a plus and not a minus or vice versa. So thank you.
Right. We also want to avoid spending money on things that are less effective if that money could have been spent on things that are more effective. Does that?
Yeah.
That's part of the optimization thing that Jim was talking about. So Mr. Lee will be shortly, he will graduate. I promise you that. And we are in the process of publishing. So to the extent that peer review has anything to say, even after the last 5 years of wrestling with other kinds of peer review, we will be over that hurdle shortly on a couple of different papers. And then we'll be able to report back on the, let's say, commercial scale demonstrations. And that data analysis, as I said, is ongoing. Thank you for the opportunity, Brian et al.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Overman. If you can share your slides with me, just email me that deck. I'll post it into our shared compendium and get that link out to everybody so they can look at that in detail on their own time.
Can do, Brian. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you. All right. Russ, you got a few minutes still, I hope. Can you jump in? Oh, I see, Justin, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask before Dr. Overman jumped off, do you have a time frame for when you're going to do the portion of the research that of blending freshwater with effluent before land application?
I think we lost him.
I'll follow up with it and then.
Yep. All right, you're on, Russ.
Good.
You're looking
okay.
good. Maybe
See
full
it
screen.
there?
Yep, there you go.
Cool. There we go. All right. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna, I walk through a few things related to the early warning system. Just as I guess I kind of always show the map like this at the beginning on the history going back to when it started back in 2014. That's the total number of warnings over that 10-ish year period by county. So Larimer and Weld and Boulder tends to be where the warnings are issued because those are the closest counties to Rocky Mountain National Park. But you can see where you know, the fewer numbers the further south and east you get out there. And then this is for 2024 for this year so far. I don't know whether we'll have any more. The season tends to wind down as we get into the heart of winter because it's colder and so forth. But yeah, 10 warnings this year issued. Again, with most of those being close to the Front Range counties. And then this is the timeline of the number of warnings per year. This shows Weld County, Larimer's the same. The numbers would go down if you went to the further distant counties. So you remember last year was a very, very wet year along the Front Range, and we had 20 warnings in 2023. This year we had 10, which is kind of pretty much the average. And I think, you know, generally what we shoot for is in that ballpark. 2020 and 21 were the years when it was obviously COVID, and then also the kind of support for the system was sort of in a less active state in those years. But kind of see where that all sits. This looks back at the records now for deposition. So this doesn't have anything specifically to do with the warnings, but this is just a little bit of a reminder of what the data looks like and what we're trying to do. So this is Lock Vale. Oh, was there a question or?
I'm getting a little background noise. If people can go on mute, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at your blog. It's a little too cutesy for me.
Okay.
There we go. Got it.
Good. This is Lock Vale. So this shows the 90th percentile of deposition in weeks. So that's kind of what we have sort of been using as the definition of a high deposition event. And you know, so you can see the year-to-year fluctuations and so forth there. This is data through the end of 2023. So we had a lot of warnings last year, and it was very wet along the Front Range, but actually not that many weeks with high deposition. And I talked about that on the last meeting, or maybe one before that. But this then shows the monthly distribution. So the spring and then the summer minus June tends to be when the high deposition happens. Can happen any time of year at Lock Vale, but that's the vast majority is in April, May, and then July, August, September timeframe. And then this is the same thing, but for Beaver Meadows. At the lower elevation site. So here, I mean, the year-to-year variations are you know, relatively similar, but there is almost never high deposition in the winter at the lower elevation site. But otherwise, it's April, May, and then summer are the main times. I don't really understand why June is a minimum, but perhaps someone who's done the measurements has a better sense of that one. But to kind of summarize this, then this is statistics through the end of 2023, just as I guess a reminder or a look at you know, why we care about the weeks of the high deposition. So 38% of the total deposition over that period at Beaver Meadows comes from the top 10% of weeks, and 23% from the top 5% of weeks. So it is disproportionate that you know, getting these the big events are when a disproportionate amount of the deposition happens. Lock Vale, it's not quite as large of a number. So 32% from the top 10% of weeks, or 20% from the top 5%. So this, I think, also leads into some of the challenges that we have with the early warning system, as I'll show in a second, that we kind of know quite well what's happening at the lower, when we're looking at the lower elevations, like at Beaver Meadows, not way up in the high elevations. And then Lock Vale, everything just gets a little bit messier, and the same goes for our forecasts. So this is, I haven't shown this, I think, in a year or so, looking at the forecast performance. So this goes through the end of 2023, but I've left out that 2020-21 time period when the system was at reduced capacity, because there's more missed events there just because the system wasn't issuing warnings as much. So Beaver Meadows on the left, Lock Vale at the right, this uses that 90th percentile of weeks. So if we look at Beaver Meadows, hits, more hits than misses, but a lot of false alarms there. Threat score is one score that we use in weather forecasting. Higher number, 1 is perfect, higher scores are better. Not as good at Lock Vale, more misses than hits, and then more false alarms. So I think in a general sense, you look at these numbers and say we probably issued too many warnings from one perspective. But if we reduce the number of warnings, then that also means fewer hits and more misses, just because you're not issuing the forecast as much. This is the same thing, but if we actually lower the threshold for what we call high deposition a little bit, and then the scores at Beaver Meadows go way up. So we get a lot more hits and fewer misses and fewer false alarms. It improves the scores a little bit at Lock Vale, but not by nearly as much. So this is the constant issue we've had with the forecasting of these, is I think we've now pinned down quite well the types of weather systems that get the upslope flow into the park, get heavy precipitation at Beaver Meadows, and those forecasts are quite good, and the warnings for that area are quite good, but it doesn't necessarily translate to Lock Vale for a few reasons. One is just what's happening up there at the higher elevations is a little bit different. I think there's more sources from the west at Lock Vale than from the east. We have the issue where the upslope flow may get up to 8,000 or 9,000 feet, and then there's heavy precipitation there, and the deposition happens there rather than up at the 10,000 feet plus. So a bunch of different things there. So this is nothing new for those who have been following along with this over the years, but it is kind of still where things stand.
Can I ask a quick question about the misses?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you said it and I missed it, but is that just weeks where there was high deposition without a warning? Or is it high deposition?
That's right.
That we know, so it could have come from, precipitation could have in theory come from another direction, or I guess we don't know. That question is not answered in this, right? Like it's just
right, or
we caught a couple weeks that had high dep and didn't catch some other weeks.
Yep, exactly. Or it could have been that the precipitation was higher than what we were sort of expecting in the forecasts, or that the concentrations were higher than which that we don't really have. That's the one thing we're always sort of guessing at, is what the emissions and what the concentrations will be, because that it's just not something we have data on. So that's always sort of a guess. But yeah, could be any of those.
I would put out there for a potential, I don't know, something that I think would be interesting if we could find funding for it, is maybe looking at 1 year and some of those weeks where we missed and really trying to figure out, should we have caught it, or was this a high week from external factors, I guess. Or get a little more refinement on were those misses because we had upslopes or because it's from somewhere else, to put a better kind of definition on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
No, I think I agree. I think that's a good idea. Some of that would be fairly simple just to look at the timing of when those tend to happen, but then to kind of really dive into the meteorology, take a little bit more effort there. Yeah.
Russ, what was the time period for this
suggestion? This is the whole. This is the whole early 2014 to 2023 minus the 2020-21 period. That I just all of that, just removed all of the data from that period, from those 2 years. But otherwise, this goes back to the beginning.
Gotcha.
maybe you're alluding to the idea that we should see whether this has gotten better over time, and I haven't looked at that. That would actually be interesting to look at, like whether we get more hits and fewer misses now than we did 10 years ago.
Right. Or if it, or just the most recent year, because it, like, this false alarms is sort of alarming. And we want to reduce those, but just to give the group a sense of the hits and misses and false alarms, for whatever 2023.
Yeah, 2023 was a tough year because it was so wet, but that, I think we've maybe talked about this at the last meeting. It was so wet, but that probably, but it was also it was really wet, like along the urban corridor. So probably a lot of that deposition was getting rained out, or a lot of the ammonia was getting rained out, over Fort Collins or Boulder, and wasn't making it up because there was so much rain down here. And we were generally issuing warnings for a lot of those cases because it's like, well, if it's going to rain 2 inches, probably the deposition is going to be high, but that may not have been the case last year. That actually would be, I haven't looked at that either. Maybe someone, Jim or Christy or somebody has looked at that in terms of whether the concentrations up in the park were lower last year, even though the rain was heavy. I mean, it's there in the data, but I didn't think to look at that really.
I think they just recently published it, at least on NADP, and it looks like concentrations and deposition were pretty low. And
okay.
And that precip wasn't as high. Like it didn't look significantly high up at Lockvale, but I know it was it was high down here. So
yep, exactly right. And it was because it was not so extremely wet up in the high elevations as it was in Fort Collins or Greeley or Boulder. Yeah. So here's a quick summary of the warnings this year so far. This uses so thanks Jim and Christy for getting me on the list to get the preliminary NADP data. That's been helpful to look at this, although the weeks in March where there was the huge snowstorm, that data is missing in that data set. And then the ones from the summer, that the preliminary data is only through June at this point. But this is the list of the warnings that were issued. So the early February storm, we issued a warning then. There was moderate, basically it was an 80th percentile week, but not a 90th percentile week. And the same was true in this storm in April. And then the week later, we issued a warning for the storm that happened then, and that one was a hit. There was high deposition then. We issued one for rain in early June, but that was not high deposition in the park. And then there was one miss this year, which was basically the week after that late April storm. So that we had a warning that went through April 28th, and then the following, which that one was a hit, and then the following week also had high deposition from but we didn't have a warning in place during that time frame. So that's about as close as I looked at that. But and we'll see once the data all gets finalized, then we'll see what happened with those March storms and the summer. But it was a much drier summer along the Front Range compared to last summer as well. So that's all I've got there, and I'll be happy to share these, Brian, so that if others want to dive in.
We'll distribute the link when we put out the notes as well. I know you've got to run. Any last quick questions for Russ? Jim?
Just a quick one, Rusty, pulling Dr. Overman's and your presentation sort of together. There was a 16% figure out there for like wetting the pins. If you were to if you remove, which it feels low, but hey, anything in the positive can be helpful. If you remove 16% of like these, I think you said 38 from those 10 weeks that are 38% of the deposition, doesn't that make a 16% even sort of more important, right? If you can do that when it's concentrated, or am I thinking of it correctly?
I don't know that. I mean, I think that's right. Yeah.
I think that's
And
the goal and
I-
basis of the whole early warning system, and making those changes that might have an impact whenever they're most impactful.
Right.
Right.
And I know, I feel like the going thought is that those high deposition leaks are most likely from upslope events, but have you ever seen any of those high deposition leaks in that 32% that came from the west? Or do you guys know that? Has that been looked at?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of data is there from that, but I think often the ones, for example, the ones that happen in the middle of the winter, December, January, I'm gonna guess though, like, we just tend not to get upslope storms at that time of year. So I think those are, and those also tend to be cases where there's high deposition at Lock Vale, but not at all at Beaver Meadows. So that at least would, I think, tend to suggest that the emissions are coming from the west in those, based kind of on the meteorology and the data. But I have no idea what kind of data on emissions or anything else there is over, over southern Wyoming or North Park or something like that. I don't know.
Or Utah,
Or Utah, exactly.
where there are quite a few ammonia hotspots. So
Well, thank you, Russ. You've given us some items to dig into further under this plan review. I'm taking notes on. And if Christy were present here, she's at NADP meeting this week, but she'd certainly have some more feedback, but more conversations for the future.
Cool. Yeah.
Wonderful
And Jim,
work,
I
Russ.
see Jim's question in the chat. Those are weeks, but it's weeks over like 8 years of data. That's probably why the numbers look big.
Thanks. All right, we'll let you go. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, you bet. And feel free to follow up over email if people have questions, and I'll send the slides over your way a little bit later.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Jim, can
Oh.
I ask you a question real quick? I was just gonna ask if you guys had your estimate for 2023 done yet for deposition. And maybe that's Christy question.
You're on mute, Jim.
Video, but not sound. That's agreed. Christy question. I don't have it offhand. But I can, I don't know, is that a request? Would you like me to, I can ask Christy and have her forwarded that information?
If she has it, yeah, to the group, just because NADP finally put theirs up, so. And theirs was good. I like theirs. But
Right,
sometimes yours is a little different, so.
And then, yeah, it requires, of course, that post-processing and, improved estimations
Yeah, right.
for data
But this
misses.
is at least the post-processed NADP data.
Right.
All right. A lot of good information there over this. We've kind of interrupted our discussion going back to the milestone report and some of the moving forward. And we started to dip our toes at least a little bit into the BMP. So let's resume that piece here. Josh, see you're back on camera. Thanks.
I'm just really interested if there's any feedback from the group or any questions from the group as to how we're planning to move forward with finalizing the report, and any other thoughts about moving into the next steps of project review next year.
I know you don't want to get into specific comments, and that's totally fine. But I guess I was just curious if there's anything you feel like we should be aware of, or like any, I don't know, big picture ag questions, because I think in 2017 there was a bit of a push to be like, you need to regulate ag. So I guess I was just curious if you heard that sentiment, and if maybe you're not ready to share that, but was curious if there's anything we should be aware of.
You would expect the comments from the groups that commented in 2017 to be very similar. There was a comment related to the ability of the federal agencies to regulate ag if they choose to under the current regulatory structure. I think that's probably unlikely as we look forward over the next few years. There was a comment related to, well, if the feds aren't going to do more than the state should. So those comments were continued from prior reports. And that's as much as I can speak to today.
Nope, makes sense.
Dr. Morales.
Hello, I'm Anarelli. I'm new to this group, but I am really excited to participate and see where I can help and where Weld County can help. But I guess I'm also at the NADP conference right now, just virtually. And Dr. Jeff Collett presented on the, what do you call it, spatial and temporal trends on ammonia in northeastern Colorado. Has this group ever had him over to present? He showed some really cool stuff today.
Jeff Collette used to present at almost every single meeting, either him or Katie Benedict. And I feel like that slowed down and stopped during the pandemic, and I don't know why it hasn't picked back up. But yes, he used to.
I can email if the group wants him, because this presentation was really good. It showed a lot of data that they've been collecting on ammonia, and it was the ammonia is dominated by proximity to ag operations is what they found. So I think it'd be great for this group to see or listen to what they found and ask their questions. So if you guys are interested, I can email Jeff and see, hey, your talk was great at NADP. Would you like to give it to this group?
You know, I'll say that, you know, agencies in the National Park Service have a close relationship with Jeff, but any sort of prompting or encouragement is helpful. So have at it.
Yeah,
connect those dots for us.
Perfect. Yeah, I went to school with him, or like he was one of my professors at school, so I know him well.
He's come up as a reviewer for a lot of papers that I've been looking at that this group has not discussed. And I don't know if he could also maybe speak to those, but there's kind of it seems like a ton of research going on in ammonia, fate, transport sources, how complex it is. And there's also some of those papers that, I don't know, he's reviewed. I don't know if he could speak to them or if we maybe want to get folks on those particular papers, but
cool.
I think that's an excellent flag. And I think one of the things I've been thinking about is how to re-engage with some of the academic community as we go through the project review and get some of their input as part of that process.
Awesome. Yeah, I will start that conversation and see what we can do for the next meeting.
Yeah, please CC me on that. We'll make sure that we get room on the agenda. Sometimes we have 20-minute blocks or something like that. Seems to be about appropriate, but maybe more is warranted if we haven't heard from such a long time. So that's a great way to approach this, and it would be in early February, first Thursday in February. Thank you so much for that. Any other reaction for Josh on the plan?
Brian, you just locked up and cut out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but your video still appears frozen to me.
Oh dear.
Which, you know, as long as we can hear you, all's well.
The audio's good.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get to my camera and I'll try to see if I can suppress. I'm getting a spinning wheel right now. So, Bonnie, why don't before I drop, why don't we start on the next segment and just have you give the group an update where we stand, and we can move from there.
Yep. So I will share my screen real quick. Maybe if I can remember how.
Brian has to stop sharing his screen.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm trying.
We might be paused for a minute if he's got to reboot.
Yeah, I'm trying here. I'm going to drop and reconnect. Hopefully that will allow you to share, Bonnie, in my absence. Okay. But I can't, I cannot make somebody a co-host.
Okay.
At this point.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want, so Brian's gonna drop out and then, do you want me to just keep talking? I don't
Yeah,
have a
please
ton.
keep talking. I'm afraid if
Okay.
I drop, I'll drop everyone, so.
Okay. So, where we're at in the process is we just had, an outside group do a literature review for us. And we've got that back. And so at least, I mean, this is a question for the group, the BMP work group. I think we're at the point where we need to have volunteers from individual sectors kind of go through certain BMPs, look at the literature that's been pulled together. And my thought is that we need to kind of categorize these BMPs, or for each BMP, make a decision. Is this one that's effective and applicable in Colorado, and we want to keep focusing on it? Is it one that's promising but needs additional research? Or is this one that we should maybe remove from the list because it's ineffective, not feasible, that kind of thing, to try to narrow our focus down? So we would need volunteers for that. And then I see that as volunteers from each sector go through it. We schedule another meeting to discuss the decisions that folks have made about each BMP. And then from there, trying to take that, like focus in on the BMPs that we think are the most effective, and compare it to our implementation surveys, to try to get a feel for, try to do a first stab at quantification, and do that as that smaller BMP work group, and then present it to the Ag Subcommittee. And then I also would like the BMP work group to discuss some potential changes to the early warning system, in terms of, like, again, if we want to remove some of these BMPs that might be a little bit of a distraction, modifications we can make to improve response rates. But it felt like that's something that BMP group might be good, a good utilization of their time. And I would also say, I think we're at the point where that BMP work group, whoever the volunteers we get from each sector, need to get together outside of the larger Ag Subcommittee and need to be ready to present results at Ag Subcommittee meetings. But those were my thoughts on next steps. So open to any and all.
Bonnie, are you able to share now? It looks like you've been granted a host.
I can. I don't know if it's going to be much help, but.
Well, if not necessary, it's okay, but I just saw the change.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so yep, yeah, and so just that's kind of a rundown of where we're at. I can also, pull up the BMP inventory if you guys would like to look at that. I would also be open to, if folks from certain sectors do want to hang out after the subcommittee meeting concludes, and we want to discuss this a little further, we can.
Bonnie, I can't today, but I have actually another meeting I have to hop on at 1, so.
And I meant just till 1, like if this meeting ends a little early and we want to run till 1.
Yeah, we had reserved time for that, Bonnie. I love that idea, so.
And I will say that I think we're at the point where it just needs to be the ag folks who are answering these questions. And a lot of that is actually because I don't want to get wires crossed. Like, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that we need to hash through, and I'd rather have us do that and then be able to present the right information that we've vetted as a cohesive whole, so that we're not getting any miscommunication or any. We'll try to minimize some misunderstanding as much as we can.
Yeah, Bonnie, that's the intent here for today. So let's see if our ag folks can stay on here in a minute. We have a couple other items to work on. I'm going to keep my video off for the moment. I did reconnect. Bonnie, can you share the link to those slides with me, and we'll get them posted?
Yeah, it's just this single slide, but yes, I can send it to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on to the next piece, any questions or comments on Bonnie's points? Really appreciate her putting that together and thoughtfully kind of restructuring how we work on that. But we do have the budget, as we mentioned, to do help facilitate those BMP meetings and support them as we have in the past. So we're ready to do that if that's where we want to go. reactions to all that?
I would only say that it's critical, this part that Bonnie's laid out, to ensure you sort through those. I'm assuming there's a fair number of publications that have been identified in the lit review, and that's going to be really critical to getting at the answers we've been talking about. What practices can we recommend? What kind of certainty do we have about their effectiveness? And maybe most importantly, can we have some assurance that they're actually going to provide a benefit and not a negative? Or under the circumstances that we're applying them, we talked about that with regard to Dr. Otterman's work, in that it may be very complex, and the last thing we can afford to do is have a early warning system practice that, instead of resolving the issue, sends a puff of ammonia in the short term, even if it long term. We need to understand those things so that we're making legitimate, sound science-based recommendations.
And I'm hoping we have that. We've got columns for all of it, and I think we're at the point now it's got to be folks who are familiar with each sector, and we'll at least give a try at us going through the lit review and seeing how comfortable we are with it. But that was something that we did look for in the lit review.
Yeah, kudos to you for putting that together.
Yeah. So I think we're at the point now we've got that pulled together, and then we need to see what we can do with it.
Okay, any other thoughts for Bonnie?
No additional thoughts. Just want to say thank you to Bonnie and everybody else who's been working on this. I think this is really important information as we look forward for this project.
See a thumbs up from Jim. We love that look.
I wish this was as straightforward as, BTEX compounds in soil. It would be nice if it was just but with these natural systems and with ammonia in particular, it's like the more you pull that thread, the more there's a new sweater and a new thread and a new, so yeah. We're trying.
Yeah, great points, all of it. Okay, let me go ahead and I'll try to share my screen again here, see if this works. I have I've lost my agenda when I broke. Yeah. Well, we have a couple other thoughts. I can do these from memory now. So first thing is, is there any objection from anyone to continuing our cadence here the first Thursday, 11 to 1, as we've been doing every quarter? I'm ready to re-up that occurrence if everyone here, or unless there's any objections here.
I think it's been working well, Brian. So let's stick with that.
Yeah. I hate to reinvent that. Everybody's got the pattern. So, okay. Thanks everyone for that. And then, as we've talked about this, kind of wrapping up the meeting for the broad group, a couple of things to think about now. We have, we're going to break here with just the ag folks in a minute. But before we do, I want to think about the May meeting. As I mentioned, we had pretty good attendance, but there was a number of things going on in the area. There were some wildfires and a number of conflicts. But that first Thursday in May, would love to see everyone, or almost all of us, together in a room. So if you have any thoughts about that, let me know. If you're supportive, give me a thumbs up, or at least something like that.
Hey, Brian, just a thought. Brian,
yeah.
Zach, way back early on in this group, we did a late spring in-person meeting with more content folks that came in and basically provided different intel and insights into the whole world of the science around some of these ideas and things. Once upon a time, I know that we did a really robust one up by Longmont, and it was a great presentation, kind of brought a lot of people up to speed as we're thinking about reinvigorating this group and growing it out to include more folks. Maybe that is an enticing way, just like a morning event that's a couple hours with some good presenters, talking the science. I know that Dr. Morales mentioned one of the environmental group guys from the NADP, and maybe we look to doing that as an opportunity to, I guess, build some fervor around the topic or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I like where you're going. I mean, last time we just had a 2-hour segment, right, with the same timing, but we could add a couple hours in the morning, for example. We could go 9 to 1 or something like that. We could probably get some lunch brought in or something to that effect, and take care of folks in a more extensive way. So I love that idea.
I can, without confirming yet, I can volunteer hosting at Weld County admin building, if that's a suitable location for everyone.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I can't remember how big that is.
Yeah, I guess how
Good
many
size.
people? Yeah, it's pretty big. It should fit like 100 people.
Yeah,
And we
I think
have,
the
like,
last time we did a big in-person, I want to say it was 2017, and we invited, some of the members that are engaged in this from each of the organizations, and of course all the members of the working group, and it was really great. Like I was new to the topic then, and it was good background and information. So I think that would be fantastic. And plus I like the Weld County building.
yeah, if you give me some, or like, what's an estimate of like the number of people?
Let's plan on 40 to 50, just
Oh,
in
yeah.
general.
Then absolutely, for sure.
Probably likely to land in the 30s, but if we know that there's a 4-hour event and we've got some great speakers and some food and things, maybe we can get a little more promotion around that and get some excitement. So I'd love to support that. I'll continue to look for everyone, all of our sponsors and so on, to provide feedback. But thanks the room was a challenge last time. We did pull it off in the end, but thank you.
Yeah, I will check the availability for, I guess it's May 2nd or May 1st.
It'll be the first Thursday of May. Yep.
Yeah, and so I'll check and I'll let you know. But I don't see a problem because it would be free. You just bring your own food.
Plus, it gets past all of the first of the year events and potentially late season snows.
That's right.
Yes.
As I'm looking at 8 inches out our window.
Exactly.
I'm sure the board would be welcome, or they would love to have you. But anyway, cool.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, with that, unless there's any other thoughts. Oh, hello. Hey, Rebecca.
Hey, I just, if we're at the end, I just wanted to
If
kind of say
Rebecca's about
goodbye.
to talk about her departure, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear it.
Information denied.
We don't want to hear it either. We like Rebecca as part of this group.
That's a hell no, you won't go.
Well, or maybe it's what an opportunity that Rebecca's going to be working on rural projects at headquarters without moving to DC. So I just wanted to say thanks so much for everybody. I've really enjoyed working with everyone for a while. I'm not going away forever, but I'm currently scheduled to be on detail for about a year. My replacement, I think I sent you all her bio. Taylor is lovely and highly motivated and very passionate about Ag 2. So I think she's going to be a good fit for the region. She's on vacation, or she would have been at this particular call, but please just try and plug her in where you can. And if you need things from the region, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have ideas on rural, please don't hesitate to reach out to me in my new capacity. And if there's anything that you need in the meantime, she and I are transitioning over the next week and a half, I should say. And then she'll be kind of fully entrenched in the role. And I'll be learning my new job. So anyways, just wanted to say thanks.
You will be missed. Yeah, absolutely. But you may be back. Is that what we've heard? You may be back.
Yeah, it's a 1-year detail, and I'm not moving to DC because
okay.
That'd be awful.
I think the statement, Brian, is you better be back, Rebecca.
There we go.
No, you guys are gonna like Taylor better than me. You're gonna be like, can you stay away longer, Rebecca? Like, I'm sure that's gonna happen. So
maybe we can get both of you. So.
Anyway, so thank you all.
Yeah, lovely.
And
All
thank
right,
you,
folks.
Rebecca. I think you've been a huge asset and a good advocate, and I look forward to you expanding that. So
Yeah.
You can still join us in May if you want to hang out and have sandwiches or something.
Oh yeah, well, thank you. I mean, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. I'm looking forward to, you know, not breaking things, but I'm looking forward to asking good questions related to the rural side and trying to be a good advocate in that space as we build out that program. And then I'll come back.
Wonderful. All right. Well, at this point, we'll close the recorded portion of the meeting, and we'll ask our just our ag folks to stay on, and we'll start to do a little planning in a tight group, and then we'll come back in February with some updates, if not before then, via email or something. So thanks everyone for today. Really enjoyed it. Great discussions, and be safe out there, stay warm, and we'll see everybody in February. Look for a new invitation to come from me in the next day or two. So
thank you. I'll really appreciate the participation and the
Thanks all.
feedback today.
Thank you.
Brian, are just the ag folks staying on?
yep, that's the plan.
Now I gotta
And I-
go because I apologize, but I am speaking at 1 o'clock for another presentation, so I have got to get on and test mics and stuff. So
all
I'll
good, Julie.
catch up
Thanks,
with
Julie.
you. If you need me to do something, just send it to me.
Will do. And then the one name I don't know is Wonder Ed. I don't. So we just
Yeah,
didn't get
Wonder-
introduced.
Yeah, let me turn on my, yeah, I'm Wondrad Gabru. I work for Colorado Department of Agriculture. I'm a division director for plant industry, which regulates the seed nursery program and pesticides program and plant health as well. So I'm actually a replacement for Les, who used to sit here in the committee. So I represent the department here as the task force. So this is the first meeting, so I'm just quiet and trying to really capture.
Yeah, thanks for stepping in for Les, Wondrad. This group now, we're just going to go with our producer group and have an opportunity to discuss through what that might mean. So you can go ahead and drop off if you're comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
Brian, this is Greg. I'm with NRCS. Should I go ahead and drop off as well?
Yeah, I think so. We've got a small group here.
All right.
Dr.
sounds good.
Morales, thank you so much for your offer, and we'll follow up on all the things we've discussed there.
Okay, so do you guys have thoughts on on our next step here? I'll share the inventory just to kind of remind folks, and so you can see what it looks like with the data filled in. So on this first page, we've got our inventory, and this is changed just a little bit to make things a little easier to sort and filter. We've kind of got, I've also narrowed down the general categories where we've got genetic selection, animal health production technologies, dietary formulation, and then for each of these, where possible, each of these BMPs, we should have a literature that's tied to it. So I guess the ask is by sector, I'd like to get some volunteers to go through